Welcome back. I'm with Pratap Singh. Joining us on NewsX. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is continuing his European tour. Of course, he was in Nice, France yesterday for some key meetings with the French President Emmanuel Macron. The two also attended the Bharat Innovates event there. The Prime Minister, of course, today has been in Slovakia in a historic visit. The Prime Minister has held meetings with the Slovakian President and the Slovakian Prime Minister. The Slovakian Prime Minister and the Indian Prime Minister also briefed the press after their bilateral meetings about the key issues discussed and the MOU signed. There's also, of course, the key G7 meeting, which will be attended by Prime Minister Modi now this week in Evian. There will also be another key event on tech, which will be attended by Prime Minister Modi in Paris. For all of that, let's quickly go across now to Mohan Kumar, a former Indian ambassador to France, who is joining us live. Welcome. Thank you very much for being with us today. Before we get to the, the French aspect of the visit, which obviously you would know very well because you have served as Indian ambassador to France, so you understand the relationship between the two countries, of course, more than many others, Ambassador Kumar. But first, let's begin with this visit to Slovakia, since that is the big headline of today. It's a historic visit. It comes, of course, after many, many years. It's the first visit since Slovakia got independence by an Indian Prime Minister. How crucial do you see this visit for India-Slovakia ties? And Slovakia has also, of course, given a lot of impetus to the India-EU FTA, which will come into actuality later this year. It's already been signed, but of course, right now is being ratified by parliaments across Europe.
Thank you very much for having me. Look, there is a golden rule in diplomacy, and which is that smaller the country, the more sensitive they are. Now, the fact of the matter is, until Prime Minister Modi took over, there was a practice of the Indian Prime Minister not going to many countries in the world, with the result that I remember when I was still Ambassador of France, we were doing something in the Ministry of External Affairs, and we found that 70 to 80 countries had never received an Indian president or prime minister. So I want to begin by saying that any time you find that you established a relationship for 75 years of diplomatic ties or less, whatever the case may be, and then you find that your prime minister has never gone there, that is a problem. So I am particularly happy that Indian Prime Minister, who I think has an uncanny knack of combining something with major visits. He always combines these, one or two secondary visits with the main item, which is G7 or France. And I am particularly happy that he has chosen Slovakia. In terms of influence, I would say this is pure gold dust in diplomacy, because a small country, the smaller the country, sometimes the greater the pride. And if they see the largest country in the world in terms of population, the head of a government descending on their soil, it gives them a feeling that, okay, we count for something. So I want to begin by saying that this cannot be substituted in terms of dollars and cents and so on, because this is something the Slovaks will remember forever. The second thing, as you hinted in your opening remarks, Slovakia does play an important role in two aspects. One is that they are very interested in trade, and as a small country, they're a trading country. And I think the India-EU FTA may well unlock potential possibilities when it comes to Slovakia-India bilateral trade. The other thing which I heard somebody mention is the civil nuclear energy aspect of it. Slovakia and India may well be interested in civilian nuclear reactors, because Slovakia is a country whose electricity, believe it or not, 70 to 80% of it comes from nuclear energy. They don't burn coal, or it's not through solar and so on. 70 to 80% is nuclear. So we do have something to gain from this small but important country. So I'm really happy that the Prime Minister is making this absolutely iconic visit to Slovakia.
And we've seen how, of course, Prime Minister Modi's leadership has been hailed by the Slovakian Prime Minister today. Slovakian PM Fico also talking about the fact that PM has become the longest serving Prime Minister of India. That is also a big feat. He praised on him, and of course spoke about the progress of India, the growth rate as well, saying if Europe had similar growth rates, what it would have been amazing for Europe, but they're not able to achieve that. He also, of course, backed India's membership for the UNSC, another crucial backing as well, and a call for the change in the United Nations, something that many other countries across the world have also done, Slovakia, of course, being the latest to do it, Ambassador Kumar.
Absolutely. As I said, it may be a small country, but it's worth remembering that every country has a vote in the United Nations. Every country desires good relations. And I think if you have established diplomatic ties with a country, there has got to be a time when between the Prime Minister, the President, and the External Affairs Minister, one VVIP visit must take place at regular intervals. Otherwise, you're not keeping up your diplomatic game. So that is what the current government is trying to do. And I'm particularly happy to note some of the things that you said, namely, they are praising Prime Minister's leadership. They realize India is the fastest growing economy in the world today, and they realize that it is in Slovakia's interest to receive the Prime Minister and to see how to take the relationship to the next level.
Indeed. Also, of course, the free trade agreement that India and EU have signed as well. Slovakia, of course, hoping that their car industry will get a major fillip through that, of course. Also, the India-EU FTA has brought us much closer with many countries within the European Union framework than ever before, isn't it? Because trade, economic ties are very important in the new world order that we live in, Ambassador Kumar. How game-changing really has that India-EU FTA also been in forging close relations with many countries across Europe like Slovakia, also the Nordic countries that PM Modi interacted with earlier this year itself?
No, I agree with you. I think many countries which are not touched by India as much as, let's say, France or Germany or Italy, I think will be, favorably impacted by the EU-India FTA. I'm hoping that the EU Parliament will approve the FTA without delay by the end of this year, and that we can look forward to 2027 as the year in which the India-EU FTA gets implemented in full. And you're absolutely right. Since the Europeans have decided to construct a common market essentially means that the external tariff is the same, regardless of whether you are exporting to France, you're exporting to Germany, or you're exporting to Slovakia. Indian products will face the same tariff. That is a high degree of security and predictability for Indian products and services. And that is something that India must exploit. And that is something that I think countries like Slovakia will look forward to, because there are areas where I think Slovakia can benefit a lot by this FTA that India and Europe have embarked upon.
All right, let's now talk about the France leg of his visit. So before we get to the G7, which of course the Prime Minister will be attending in Evian, let's talk about the deliberations in Nice, Ambassador Kumar. How crucial was that bilateral between PM Modi and President Macron of France yesterday? Big breakthrough on many issues, of course. Again, signaling that the two leaders want to continue this engagement at the highest level. This has now been called an elevated strategic partnership between the two sides. Yesterday, of course, several MOUs also signed, from civil nuclear cooperation to, of course, higher education cooperation, to cooperation on AI, tech, and people-to-people ties through culture and many other areas. How important was that meeting yesterday in continuing our closening of ties? What stood out for you in the outcomes that were discussed?
Three things in response to the question that you're posing to me. First, I cannot think of any strategic partnership in which you have back-to-back visits by President and Prime Minister under 6 months, within 6 months. February, President Macron was in Delhi for the AI summit, and they had a bilateral meeting, summit meeting as well. They had a joint statement which was detailed. And then in the month of June, we are just the beginning of June, the Prime Minister of India goes back and pays a return visit to France. And again, they take stock of bilateral ties and come up with a substantive joint statement. That is not something you can point to in any strategic partnership. most strategic partnerships, the best that people can do is to exchange visits once a year. So that's the first. The second thing I want to say is that I think the two leaders are trying to make this special global strategic partnership fit for purpose for the 21st century. Hitherto, the relationship was focused on defense, space, and nuclear energy. Now, what the two leaders are doing is to bring new subjects like tech, innovation, artificial intelligence. The cutting edge of technology is now turning out to be the fourth pillar, if you like. The three pillars being defense, space, and nuclear. I'm seeing a fourth pillar, which is tech and innovation, where I think the two countries are natural partners because India has got a large reservoir of talent.
Yes.
And as the Prime Minister said yesterday in Nice, when you have connection and conviction, it's a great thing. That's what he said yesterday. He said that both the countries are going to use their connection and inspiration to try and do something in technology and innovation. So the Bharat Innovate actually showcased some of the best players in India to France and to the French market. And then, of course, Prime Minister Modi will participate in the Viva Tech show in Paris on 18th.
Yeah.
Viva Tech, I remember attending it as India's ambassador to Paris, and that is one of the biggest tech shows in Europe, actually, not just France. So I think what the two leaders are trying to do is to modernize the strategic partnership and try and introduce new areas like tech, innovation, artificial intelligence, where I think the two countries can stand to benefit.
Absolutely.
As you know, and as your viewers know, 2026 is the year of innovation.
Yes.
So it sits very well. The Prime
Yes,
Minister's
it sits very
visit
well
to
with,
this
of course,
context.
this year's theme and also in these emerging areas of cooperation between both the sides. And now also, of course, clearly, Ambassador Kumar, there is the traditional areas of cooperation which have always been defense and space and nuclear, as you were just saying. A particular MOU signed yesterday for space, of course, is significant. Also nuclear cooperation. But the defense aspect also of our partnership, how important is it to fast track the Rafale deal, since our Indian Air Force needs those jets as soon as possible, the Scorpion submarines as well? And also, does it clearly show that France trusts India as an implicit partner? The fact that we are seeing technology sharing as well, given that these Rafale jets eventually will be made in India, and even the submarine components eventually, I think about 60% of them are also going to be built in India.
What India is doing, not just with France, but with all our main partners, is to move away from a seller-buyer relationship to that of co-designing, co-development, and co-production. That's the only way out. India is still a relatively poor.
Ambassador Kumar, are you able to hear me? Okay, I think we have lost Ambassador Mohan Kumar there, it seems. We will just try and get him back. He was, of course, commenting on the India-France partnership, on, of course, the meeting, the bilateral that President Macron and Prime Minister Modi had yesterday. And, of course, also from tomorrow, the G7 summit begins. That, of course, is also in Evian in France. Clearly, of course, Prime Minister Modi has taken this relationship to a whole new level. As Ambassador Kumar was just saying, there have been areas of traditional cooperation. Those, of course, now, though, have seen a 360-degree shift into new areas of cooperation and emerging tech areas. This, of course, technology, innovation, AI are the themes that I was mentioning with Ambassador Kumar. All right, well, let's take a break. Ambassador Kumar, thank you for your time and perspective. We're back on the other side with lots more.